Names of Nigerian politicians who are the ones sponsoring insecurity in Nigeria are about to be published. Now you can take a look at this headline, and it says, CPC blacklist 12 Nigerian governors. Other officials may face U.S. sanction. This is coming after Cruz was seen in a video saying they are already compiling names of those sponsoring and harboring insecurity in Nigeria. They are going to be publishing those names and they are going to sanction them heavily. I'm going to allow you to take a look at the video, but before then, take a look at what this headline says further. It reads, 12 northern governors, prominent traditional rulers, and senior judges are at the center of a looming diplomatic storm as the United States Congress considers a bill that could impose far-reaching sanctions on them over alleged complicity and what American lawmakers describe as Christian genocide and systemic persecution under Nigeria's Sharia and blasphemy laws. It reads further. This follows the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern by President Donald Trump and his instruction to the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, to act without delay, to act very fast. So America is about to publish the names of governors, politicians, and rulers, traditional rulers, those who are, harboring and supporting this criminality we are seeing in Nigeria. Now, I'm going to allow you to take a look at how Arise TV crew members have analyzed this. They've spoken about, Marco Rubio's video, which he published on Twitter and also confirmed through a Twitter post that they are going to be raining sanctions on these people because of the menace they've caused, the havoc they've caused to Nigeria. Just take your time and watch this video and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Now take a look.
The latest development in the American government's threats to intervene in Nigeria's security challenges have emerged as Republican Senator Ted Cruz has posted on X saying that in the next few days he will be explicitly naming the Nigerian officials that he feels should be held accountable.
President Trump designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern. That is tremendous news. It's something that I've been advocating for a long time. There is no country on earth where Christians are more persecuted than Nigeria. Since 2009, more than 50,000 Christians have been murdered by Boko Haram and radical Islamic extremists. More than 20,000 churches and schools have been burned to the ground. I introduced legislation to direct the administration to designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern. President Trump has done that. Thank you, President Trump. We're going to keep the fight going to protect Christians and to protect religious liberty.
On his X account that accompanied this video, he also shared a statement, and that read, "I've been pushing for legislation to designate Nigeria as a CPC and to impose sanctions on the Nigerian officials responsible. Thank you to President Trump for his leadership in imposing the designation and more broadly for fighting to stop the murder of Christians in Nigeria. Now we should take the next step and hold Nigerian officials accountable. I intend to be very explicit about who they are in the coming days and weeks." Gang, gang. Rufa, you were saying you hope your name is not on the list. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. What's your take on this? Yes, I know.
It's Nigerian politicians that will be asking now that, hey, hope my name is not on the list. Hope my asset in America. Hope my name is not on the list. Little wonder that we are really here, even the debate. Somebody say, don't talk about Trump. Don't talk about Trump in the past. But the truth is, the question will be, it's not just about naming names. What basis will he be naming those names? Are they going to also bring out the empirical research? Because we also run the risk of naming names out of vendetta. And it's not today politicians have been named in all of this insecurity. But some politicians have come out to say, oh, it's out of vendetta. So we would like to see based on the intelligence. So for me, it's not about the naming of names, which I wanted Cruz to name. Because it's not today we're having names. What about the names that were released in Dubai of terrorist financiers? What happened? We didn't get anything out of it. So if these names can come out, yes. But also the research behind the names, the intel. So America can release that credible intel so we can see it. But if you are just naming names and all of that, I don't think that's the way to go. We must also see the research and the rigor and the knowledge system behind it. Because, a lot of people have died. And we have no idea what it means to lose somebody that ought not to die. There are many cases, people have called me in the middle of the night for kidnapping and the like, and so many things like that. For killings, across this country. For Zabaramari farmers, there's lots happening. And people must be made to account for it. But most importantly, like I argue, apart from the calisthenics of the West and their own interests, we should solve that problem internally. Vimba, Nigeria has the capacity. We are ECOMOG. We shelled out $15 billion to defend other African countries and bring peace to Liberia. The peace in Liberia today, the peace in Sierra Leone, Nigeria did it. Why can't we do it for ourselves?
Oh, very well said. I think it comes down to the fundamental issue that the killings must stop, the insecurity must be tackled head on, and we all need to be unified in how we decide to approach that and do that in a very effective and quick way. Well, in related news, there was a mild drama in the Nigerian Senate when the Deputy Senate President Barau Jibrin criticized US President Donald Trump, insisting that Nigeria is a sovereign state and that he, Jibrin, is not afraid of Trump. Well, this followed a perceived reluctance of the Senate President to speak on Trump's threat of military intervention in Nigeria. Well, let's take a look.
Don't be scared. I can see.
I said
I'm not scared of Trump. I will say my mind.
President or a country be scared.
I'm a Nigerian. Nigeria is a sovereign nation. I'm a parliamentarian. I'm a deputy president. I can speak on behalf of Nigeria. I'm not scared of Trump.
But do not allow others to speak for you.
Don't be scared of Trump.
Get
you
something.
can say your mind about Trump.
Get something.
We are a sovereign nation.
But get something. Don't allow people to ascribe what you did not say to you.
Did you wrong, but you didn't say it. That's correct. You didn't say it.
Yes.
But what I'm saying
is that
you shouldn't be scared of saying anything.
No. If you want me to say it now, I will say.
We're not scared of Trump.
I will say, but then listen.
We're a sovereign nation. We're not scared of Trump.
Clark, please delete what the Deputy Senate President has said. He spoke out of tune. You are not hearing what I'm saying. I'm saying this time the Senate President of Nigeria did not answer President Trump, and then that the quotation is meant to cause diplomatic row. It is the presidency that will answer President Trump.
Clark, delete what you wrote about those statements. Well, let's find out what people had to say on social media. Most people took it in a very laughable way. But let's take a look at Sir Says, I believe is pronounced, who says intense exchange in the Senate highlights tension between defending national sovereignty and managing diplomatic narratives. Akpabio's caution contrasts sharply with Barau's bold stance, a classic clash of protocol versus principle. That's quite an intelligent take. Cortigo also came and said, now everyone is talking. Now we are acting like people are dying, not the silence we've been having all this while. Just a tweet from Trump did all this. Go and fix the insecurity. It is not to be shouting sovereign country up and down. Then lastly, on a more humorous note, Big Fave said, Akpabio be like, no be me when I go put for problem. He doesn't want to join his name in it. Dr. Abati, your take on these issues.
No, this is my view. I think both senators are right. Yesterday, Ayo here was talking about the need for a coordinated response from government so that we don't have people either talking across purposes or a cacophony, of voices on the particular matter. And I think that is the basic principle. Now, I think it's unfortunate that up to this point, we don't see that, coordinated response. Even if the Nigerian government, through the Minister of Information, through the presidency itself, through also Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister Yusuf Tuga, have said, look, Nigeria is not a country of religious persecution. What we need is this coordinated response. The second point is that we've also had the advice from people saying there is need for caution so that it doesn't look like we are, provoking further Mr. Trump or that we are, being confrontational. This same Trump that has threatened that he will put boots on the ground. So, there are some people who may want to be very cautious. However, the lawmakers, whether in the Senate or the House of Representatives, they are representatives of the people. And so, in that regard, Senator Jibrin Barau is also right to say, well, I'm representing the people of a certain constituency. And we do not think that Donald Trump should dictate our sovereignty. And I think, he has the right, he's entitled, because the people in the National Assembly, they are representing Nigerians, and they have the right to speak up for their constituents and to express a particular view. So to that extent, he's right. The Senate chairman is saying he was quoted in some papers as having said something. And he said, no, he has not said anything. You know, you can now moralize and say, well, the Senate president, who is chairman of the National Assembly, you think he should have an opinion. But if he says, no, we should be cautious, let the presidency lead the debate. Maybe he's just waiting for the presidency to take certain steps. He may be privy to certain information, and he does not want to use his chair as chairman of the National Assembly to make statements. So to that extent, I would say both men, you know, are right from wherever they are coming from. But the Nigerian people will expect that the representatives of the people, in fact, the National Assembly as a body, can also take a position and advise the presidency on this matter. But, you know, if caution is the word, and you can see that even the Nigerian government is not confronting Trump directly. Yeah. They are just saying we are willing to cooperate, you know, whoever wants to work with us, we will work with them. The advice of the elder, Professor Akinyemi, that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu himself should not confront Trump. So, I mean, they have all the intelligence. They are, you know, in the seat. So they will formulate the best kind of response. And probably they are using back channels, you know, something they may not come in public to say to people. So it's about information that is available from where you are, you know, within the spectrum.
Just remind us of what happened in Owo, Ondo State at the St. Francis Xavier Church on the 5th of June, 2022, which was Pentecost Sunday, when a group of Islamist militants came and attacked the church immediately after the Mass ended.
I mean, you have to understand doctrinally, the jihadists will actually tell you that in Islam there's only one God, and it's shirk to associate any God with that single one God. And for us in the Catholic Church as Christians, we have one God, but God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And so Pentecost is actually a day of that celebration. So when they attack, they are also attacking not just physically, but your own ideological understanding of what God is. And so they were having this service, you know, and it is so sad that they had to enter this church and massacre, you know, these people that have died and be killed. So we keep praying for the family, and we hope that after 3 years, the government should respond really to these people who have been affected by the violence.
So they bombed the church, they shot at people, killing 41 of them, wounding more than 100 people. They then went away. What have you, as part of the bigger Catholic Church, been hearing from the government in terms of apprehending the attackers? We understand the authorities say they've arrested in that 3-year period about 5 of them, but up till now, 3 years later, nobody has appeared in court.
I mean, in Nigeria generally, that is actually the culture of impunity. You know, or it's not the only incident. A lot of incidents have happened. Killings have happened, even in churches and in mosques. But most times, people are actually not held accountable. And that has created the space and emboldened the jihadists to continue to massacre and to kill people in the way and manner, you know, they have done. And I think that has gone beyond religion and even ideology to a point that where we have now the political economy of conflict, the kidnapping, the banditry, and it's going to be tough for people to give that up, particularly when they are making so much money. In a context that unemployment is so high, young people have no jobs, and therefore kidnapping and making money has become a very big currency. So we are still asking on the government how to end the culture of impunity from top to bottom. I think will be very important. And the situation of Oyo is not the only one. You go to Zamfara, you go to Taraba, a lot of people have been attacked and killed, and no one is actually held accountable. And even in certain cases, you find where the government has what we call the de-radicalization and rehabilitation cases, where perpetrators are supposed to be rehabilitated and reintegrated back into society, while victims are in IDP camps living on handouts and relief materials. And so that is quite contradictory, and I think it's something that the government have to have a rethink about. and to see how we can rejig the situation.
And just in terms of the people of Owo and all the other people that you've been talking about, how they might be recovering from the attack. You talked about a lot of them in IDP camps and so on and so forth. I mean, one imagines that the psychological wounds must still be very deep, and it is something of a long road to recovery for those who actually survived that attack, and there's no programs for them to recover.
Absolutely. You look at Owo, you look at Dogon Hawa in Plateau State, you look at Zaki Biam in Benue State, you look at Kizara in northern parts of the country, and even some of the situations that happened in Bayelsa. A lot of those young boys who were affected, probably they were 7, 5, 4 years, now 15, 20 years down the line, they are adults. And no psychological attention has been given to that. And that's why the highest level of drug consumption, particularly among young people, on how to deal with the psychological impact of what they have gone through, is happening in most of these conflict-infested areas. So I think that just beyond Owo is entirely a national strategy and a national problem. So we have to find not just the physical, rehabilitation of people, but also the psychological attention that we should give. Otherwise, we end up with a whole generation of young people that are psychologically broken. And therefore, the sort of contribution that they can make to the social condition of this country could become really very difficult.
Very important point. And does that road to recovery feel even longer because of the perception that nothing has been done to address the injustices that these people have had to face?
There are accumulation of grievances in this country, either against individuals, against institutions, against the government. Why? Because these conflicts happen and nothing is done. And then the society moves on as if everything is okay. So it's really going to be a very, very big problem. How do we overcome that? At the Kuka Center, we try to provide community engagement. And one of the things that is missing, really, is just like what happened in Gachacha, Rwanda, the Gachacha project, where simply people come and sit down and tell the truth and onboarding what has been in their mind, just bring out all the poison that has been accumulated over the years and tell their own stories. I will give you an example. Myself and Bishop Kuka, when we started this program, we were in Maiduguri just to speak to victims. And one of the women said, even if you bring back my son, who is a member of Boko Haram, I won't forgive him because he killed his father and his own brothers in my presence for not believing in his own brand of Islam. And a lot of families are living with these stories, but they don't have the platform.
There's no outlet.
There's no outlet to even share really what is happening. And I think for us, it's a very, very serious problem. If you look at people, these institutions like NIM Foundation, run by Akilu, Dr. Akilu, these are the sort of interventions that they are offering. So beyond relief materials, beyond physical rebuilding of houses, the mental recovery of the person is much more important. And I think that we can only do our best, but the government really has to step up too.
And as you said, beyond Owo and some of the other places that you mentioned, there are numerous other attacks that don't even make the headlines.
Absolutely.
In other places in Nigeria, in churches and so on, in recent years. But when President Trump talks about an existential threat to Nigeria's Christian population, how do you respond to that?
Technically, we don't want to lay too much emphasis on the technical definition of genocide. I think the most important thing is that lives are being lost. And let us deal with what Trump has not said, rather than what he has said. Trump didn't say Christians are killing Muslims or Muslims are killing Christians. Trump did not say he is coming to fight Muslims in Nigeria. We believe that the jihadists and the terrorists are killing both Christians and Muslims. And so if the intention of the Trump government is to come into this country to take out the terrorists, I think all of us as citizens will eventually, benefit actually from that.
Because the fact is that the government isn't succeeding in doing it.
For 15 years, government after government, nothing has been done. And I think people are tired of the conflict. Sometimes I go to my local church here for Mass every Sunday. I have to carry with me bags, of of food items, because the church is filled with people who probably are IDPs that run away from this conflict, and you cannot preach in the name of Jesus and then walk away, leaving them in the same hunger and the same social condition. And I think that it's really very serious, and people are really tired. I am happy. Really, I was mentioning to Bishop Cook, and he told me, you know what, this period for Nigeria is a God-given period. It's a period for us to have the most difficult conversations that we have always avoided in the history of this country. So, for example, should Nigeria have two sets of law, the Constitution and the Sharia? Why can't we have one and all of us comply with that set?
Especially when this country claims to be a secular
Absolutely. Country. So it's an important period. It's like we are all having a virtual conversation across the country, in the market, online, offline. People are really talking about this issue. And the risks we run is actually that this period may just come and pass as a very normal thing, and no strategic decision is taken as to how we can come out of the woods. So it's important we have this very difficult conversation.
I think a lot of people will agree with you. The bishop, of course, in charge of Owo Catholic Diocese, Bishop Jude Arogundade, has said that he shares President Trump's sentiment and that anyone who says otherwise is not being honest. And obviously his parishioners, I mean, his people in his diocese are the people who got slaughtered. I mean, do you agree with him?
I agree, because, look, when I was a student in SOAS, University of London, I used to produce documentaries.
That's the School of Oriental and African Studies, right?
I had my PhD in conflict and terrorism. And I used to travel to border areas to produce documentaries. One of the places I went to was a place called Lukti in southern Adamawa, between Cameroon and Adamawa.
And you're from Adamawa State?
I'm from Adamawa State.
Right.
And you just need 30 minutes to walk into Cameroon. You know, there were IDPs, thief people who were affected by this conflict. First, from Benue, they came to Taraba. Then from Taraba, they ran to Adamawa, and Adamawa at the border with Cameroon. And they call it ungoverned space. But of course, they are governed by other jihadists and terrorists. And they had to rent out land in order to farm. And even when they harvest, they have to pay a tax for them to be allowed to take their goods, to the market. They are literally at the mercy of non-state actors. And it is all over. So we need help in this country. We need help. But we still want to respect our sovereignty. But if this help will come to stop the killing, to stop the violence, I think for me is really a welcome development, because every single life in this country really matters.
Absolutely. And there are those who say that the present situation of many Christians, as well as Muslims, calls for much more concerted government action, which is pretty much what you were saying, and that the government must be called to account for the lives that have been lost and for not doing anything concrete to address that situation.
I think even we lack data, we lack information. And we need to disaggregate this conflict and identify all, the types of conflicts that are existing, the nature, the flavor, and how people, are being killed. But it's true, the government really has to do something, but particularly how to look after the victims and people who have been affected, by this conflict. We hope and we pray that something really will come out of this situation. But the situation is very serious.
Indeed. And President Trump talked about American troops. Would you welcome American troops in Nigeria, or would that be a step too far?
I'm not a military person. I don't know how. My younger brother was in the army. He was killed in Baga, And I think for me, welcoming the troops, does it mean really fighting? Or does it mean helping with building the capacity of our own soldiers and helping us with weapons? I think I would prefer, the latter. That they come, they support us, they build capacity, they provide intelligence. Because otherwise, the reaction, I don't know how the reaction will end. Because you can see that China has already reacted. We are going to stand with Nigeria. We don't know what the Middle East, how they will react. And we even don't know how the jihadists themselves will react. You also hear the stories that they have surrounded Bamako, and they are likely going to take Mali, and maybe the whole of Sahel, and the contestation between Al-Qaeda and ISIS, with Boko Haram and the Jamal to Nasrul Islam wal Muslimin. So we don't want to get caught up because the Americans had...
It could get very messy.
Messy. They were in Afghanistan, they were in Iraq. Look at the result of eventually what has happened. I think it has to be an engagement and a very strategic negotiation between the Nigerian government and the American government. And they should reach an area, you know, where there's some sort of an agreement. But I don't want us also to dwell too much on the physical violence. There are non-physical issues, unwritten laws that people really actually go through. So, for example, the taking off of missionary schools. Can they return these schools? The refusal to help us build places of worship for certain faiths in federal institutions, for example. So I think for me, these are all issues to be discussed. There are certain places in northern Nigeria, if you are not a Muslim, you cannot become a traditional ruler. These issues must be addressed, in my opinion. And these are not physical violence. These are unwritten laws that are not part of the constitution, but they are being implemented because of the cultural, traditional, and historical context of the place. And that's why we need to have a conversation as a nation. Which type of country do we want to live in?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought those things up. There is an international assessment from some US evangelical groups that suggests that Fulani gunmen are taking over large tracts of land in the Middle Belt, driven by their alleged expansionist ideology, which they say has been going on for decades. What are your thoughts about that, given that you're from northern Nigeria? I mean, isn't the violence between, for instance, Fulani herders and local farming communities more to do with a dispute over access to water, grazing land, rather than a dispute between Muslims and Christians? Or is it your sense that it is about domination and about expanding Fulani influence and authority within the Nigerian space?
I mean, what we have seen over the years in Nigeria is at two levels. Number one, there has been undocumented internal migration, really, in this country. People are moving, looking for better jobs, looking for better, you know, standards of living, looking for employment. And most of the movement is from the far north down to the Middle Belt and the south. And once people move, they move along with their identity. They move along with their religion. They move along with their history, their culture, their language. And of course, when they settle, they don't want to forget where they are coming from. And I think for me, that is the evidence we have seen. And that is true. If you go to southern and central Taraba, for example, lots of people have moved from Katsina and other places and settled there. The second element is the environmental impact of this. My village is very close to Cameroon. It used to be very forested, where we find hyenas coming to steal my father's goat, for example, in the night. Right now, as if even the mountains have been taken to the salon and given a haircut. The trees and everything has been chopped down. The land has become naked, waterless, treeless, almost inhabitable. Just travel between Borno and Yobe. Just travel the far north. And therefore, something has to be done, and people need to move. And in that process, people weaponize their identity in order to survive, in order to participate in politics.
Yeah, people turn into their own little sort of
And so for me, this is my own reading. This is my own reading. And when you now add the culture of impunity and lack of accountability, therefore people can use these identities to dominate one community or the other. They even change the names of communities back to their own either tribal or ethnic names.
Right.
And is really what is happening.
Well, let me just make this point, because it's always important to bring out the data and the statistics. The group known as ACLED, which analyzes political violence around the world, says that if you look at, it's an independent group, that if you look at the attacks by Islamist militants in the north of Nigeria, thousands of people have been killed, but ACLED says most of these have been Muslims, not Christians. Is that a fact? Because figures from some local and international evangelical groups suggest that more churches have been attacked and burnt than mosques.
I mean, we have to position this within the context. You go to Zamfara, you have more Muslims in Zamfara. You go to Katsina, you have more Muslims in Katsina. You go to Sokoto, you have more Muslims in Sokoto. So most of the attacks that we have seen in the mosques against Muslims is true. Muslims are killed based on that region. But that is not the same story in Benue.
Yeah, in the Middle Belt, for example.
And in Tara. But there is a nuance to this. The Islamists will only kill a Muslim, but they have to declare him an infidel first, in the first place, because he doesn't believe in their own brand of Islam. And because he doesn't believe in their brand of Islam, this very extremist ideology that they seem to align with, therefore he can be killed. And in that case, he is even considered worse than a Christian. And that's why it is quite understandable and even acceptable that from the Muslim community, it is true, they are also being killed. But the jihadists declare them as infidels because they don't believe in their own brand of Islam. But for me, it's not about these nuances and concepts. It's about the lives that are being lost and the type of country we want to live in.
Right. So I guess the real issue here is not whether more Muslims and Christians are being killed or the other way around. The real issue here is the people who are doing the killing and why they've been able to continue these killings over so many years.
Absolutely.
So what would you like to see Donald Trump do about all this? Greater engagement with the Nigerian government to force them to make people more accountable for these crimes? Or do you think Mr. Trump should send American troops? I know you touched on this earlier, but we're concluding now, so we want to round it into a sort of nice little compartment. Do you think Mr. Trump should send American troops to Nigeria to deal with these very heavily armed militants where the Nigerian government has apparently failed to rein them in?
I think for me, there will be two-pronged approaches to this. We have to deal with the military and the security aspect. But even if you clear these people out, we still have a substantial number of young people, particularly in northern Nigeria. If you brought 30,000 trucks of jobs to my village, a lot of the young people cannot take those jobs because they haven't gone to school. I am lucky I went to school. Otherwise, probably, I don't know where I would have been. Maybe even a member of Boko Haram. I have absolutely no idea. So if you look at Northeast, for example, 6 states with millions of young people lacking jobs, the only industry that is not government industry capable of employing 1,000 people is the Dangote Sugar Company in Loom. But everybody wants to have a job with the government. The government cannot employ everyone. And the private sector is dead. But even if the private sector were active, people must be educated. People must have critical thinking to allow them to make decisions. Education that can give them opportunities. And I think if you resolve that, that will be very helpful. So beyond the Americans coming to resolve simply the security and the military aspect, personally, I will call for massive investment in education. I will ask that schools should be returned to the missionaries. Those schools were very,
But you can't do those things without security, though, can you?
We can, but we have to clear out the security issue. Because these things have to be long-term. They are not just immediate. They must be long-term and really well planned. And if you do it that way, otherwise you just clear the issue of the security and you leave a substantial number of people without education, without jobs. They are just cannon foders. They will just, be transformed back into what we are trying to avoid.
So it's important to have this as part of a long-term sort of vision, if you like, 2040 or whatever, where each government is duty-bound to continue from where the other one left
Absolutely.
off.
We must have even a bipartisan policy among the political parties. Not that one party comes to government and then, they do away with everything that was done by the previous government. No. I think we must identify very strategic issues that can help resolve some of these problems. And they should be consistent and there should be continuity between one government and the other. And for me, particularly for northern Nigeria, honestly speaking, education is very important because I believe it. I am here today because I went to school.
A number of things Christians have suffered in this country can be compared to the crucifixion of the Lord. Do we talk about the takeover of all Christian schools, all mission schools by the Nigerian government? They took over those schools, destroyed them, turned our educational institutions into houses of formation of criminals and mediocres. People who can't write simple letters, who can't speak any language correctly, who can't solve their own problems, and won't pass any exam without cheating. And that is like crucifying, because that is a house. The school is a house of formation of character. They have taken the body away. They have removed all signs of his death. Since after the takeover of schools, who has the correct statistics of the number of churches that have been burnt down in this country? Who knows how many Christians have been killed in this country because they are Christians? Some right inside the church. Some will tell you these are criminals. They are not just targeting Christians. Take it easy. How many of those who perpetrate these crimes have been arrested and prosecuted? How many of them are in jail? How many of them have faced the death penalty? The Catholic Church is against the death penalty. I'm talking about Nigerian law. But we know that if anything happens to some of those who perpetrate this crime, either in self-defense or in resistance, the government stands up. There is outrage everywhere in all levels of government. This selective outrage of government, this selective outrage of the police, of the army, of the security agencies, when innocent citizens are massacred and when criminals are repelled and in the repelling they die, this selective outrage is like, it's not only that they have killed him, they've taken the body away. They want to wipe off every trace. And some Christians are being provoked legitimately to react. Anytime any of them reacts, they are said to be taking the laws into their hands. But all those who trample the law with their feet, trample upon the law. They kill, they rape, they maim, they sack farmers, they harvest crops of farmers and feed it to their cattle. And when you say no, why are you doing this? It is death. And when they do that, they record it and post it to government to see. If you ask them a question, you are killed. If you chase them away and while running away they die, you'll be condemned to death. This, permit me to say, is pure, sheer provocation. But this is Easter. Christians still have to be told to embrace the path of peace, forgiveness. But in one of the readings yesterday from the book of Exodus, the people were crying to Moses. They were stranded in the desert. The sea was there. And Moses turned to God. What do we do? We are stranded here in the bush, in the desert. What did God tell him? Why are you crying to me? Tell the people to move, and you raise your rod. Raise your staff. We as Nigerians, as Christians, like the Israelites escaping from slavery, must learn to do certain things now differently. We cannot continue in our selfish indifference. We have to bring the values of the gospel into our individual and collective lives. That is the only hope we have for survival. While pleading with those whose responsibility it is to govern and to protect us, today many of them will go online in television and in their official handles, social media handles, to wish Nigerians, especially Christians, happy Easter. Oga, keep your wish. Don't wish me happy Easter. Protect my life. Don't wish me happy Easter. Do your job. Because this cloud that is gathering, this darkness that is gathering, if it is allowed to extinguish the light of faith of Christians, this country will be plunged into total darkness. And successive governments that have stood idly by and watching while this is happening should only blame themselves and not any other person if anything like that happens. But today is Easter. Our prayer is that Christians we learn really to live the life of the risen Lord. And that even those who are not Christians, looking at us, should learn that the only hope for the salvation after life, and even for peace in this world, is living out the commandments of Christ, of God, summarized by Christ, loving God and loving your neighbor.
So guys, I'm going to read this article further and we are going to talk about it. Let me just start from the beginning. And it says CPC blacklists 12 Nigerian governors Other politicians may face U.S. sanction. And here it says 12 northern governors, prominent traditional rulers, and senior judges are at the center of a looming diplomatic storm as the United States Congress considers a bill that could impose far-reaching sanctions on them over alleged complicity in what American lawmakers describe as Christian genocide and systemic persecution under Nigeria's Sharia law and Nigeria Sharia and blasphemy laws. And it reads further: this follows the designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern by President Donald Trump and his instruction to Secretary of State Marco Rubio to act without delay. On Friday, Trump, in a post on Truth, lamented that thousands of Christians were being killed in Nigeria. Asked Congressman Riley Moore, together with Chairman Tom Cole and the House of Appropriations Committee, to immediately look into the matter and report back to him. And this post went ahead to say that the Nigerian Religious Freedom Accountability Act of 2025, sponsored by Republican Senator Ted Cruz, designates Nigeria as a country of particular concern for religious persecution. The bill proposes directly sanctions against public officials and religious authorities accused them of promoting or tolerating violence against Christians and other religious minorities. In December 2020, the U.S. Department of State designated Nigeria as a country of particular concern for the first time ever due to what it termed systemic, ongoing, egregious violation of religious freedom, violent Boko Haram attacks, and frequent ethno-religious conflict exacerbated by the judicial system. They say the Nigerian judges are also going to be affected. And then it went further to say that under the bill introduced on September 9th, 2025, the U.S. Secretary of State will, within 90 days of its passage, submit a report to Congress listing Nigeria's officials, including governors, judges, monarchs who have promoted, enacted, or maintained blasphemy laws or tolerated violence by non-state actors invoking religious justification. I believe that U.S. is bearing in mind, about the Adamawa guy who has been sentenced to death. There's also this guy in Kanu State who is also facing a blasphemy, whatever, because a lawmaker reacted to Kwankwaso's tweet and said he accused Kwankwaso to have signed the blasphemy law that is about to kill somebody for just expressing himself. So a whole lot is happening. People are now saying this, when this thing started, some people say, Peter Obi went to the U.S. Peter Obi is the one that is causing it. They don't know that U.S. has been monitoring what has been happening in Nigeria. And now the chicken has come home to roast. They are looking for... Bwala Dane initially accused Peter Obi to have been the one who caused all this problem because Peter Obi was actually in the U.S. when this thing started. And now Bwala Dane is saying that it is the IPOB that is pushing it. Initially, Bwala Dane denied that there's no genocide. And now he's saying that, it's the IPOB that is pushing genocide and all that. So you can see that the government is not even managing this crisis correctly. These people they don't manage this thing correctly. What is it for the government to admit, yes, that people are being killed, especially Christians? When people say Muslims are being killed, Muslims are not being killed. These people can just go into the villages and sack the villages, but they can abduct their Muslim people, but they hardly buy. Except these people come under their fire. They only target Nigerian military. If you have checked, even in Zamfara, they go to these villages and abduct some of the victims. They hardly buy them. But when they come to the Middle Belt, they buy them. That is scatter their bodies all over the places and for eyes to see. And people are coming out to say there is no genocide in Nigeria. It is really heartbreaking to see how some people will try to cover all what we are seeing in this country today. So guys, I don't know what you make of this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell notification. Thank you.